Welcome to Of Sound Mind and Spirit. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Lisa. We're sisters walking together on a journey of faith. We're not perfect.
We definitely don't have all the answers.
We're inviting you to walk with us as we explore ways we can better know and grow in our faith together. Welcome back to another episode from Of Sound Mind and Spirit. Hi, Shelley.
Hello, Lisa.
Shelley, we have a special guest on the podcast today, and I'm really, really happy to introduce our dear listeners to our friend, Amy Connell.
Amy Connell is a certified personal trainer who wants you to take a rest day and a nutrition coach who wants you to enjoy dessert. Sounds like our favorite kind of person. She helps women feel and function well in simple and grace-filled ways so they can fulfill their purpose. Amy is the host of the Graced Health podcast, Lessons to My Teenage Self podcast for teen girls, an author of the books Your Worthy Body for Women and Your Core Strength for Teen Girls, and is a creator of the low-impact online class, Be Complete. Amy lives in the Houston area with her husband and a stray-turned-princess pit bull named Grace. She and her husband have a college-age son and one who's a senior in high school, and they regularly talk about how much money they will save on groceries when both the boys are finally out of the house, something I'd never thought of before. Welcome, Amy. We're so happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Shelley and Lisa. It is so delightful to be here.
Amy, it's funny. Before we came on, Shelley and I talked about how we each met you, and it was different. I mean, you're close in proximity to us, but we met you each separately.
Yeah. Do you remember when we met, Lisa? I for some reason, specifically remember meeting you in the library at our neighborhood elementary, and we were checking out on like book day or something. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that you and I know you have 3 kids, but my 2 kids are the age of your 2 younger ones. Yes. And then Shelley, I met you at book club and think that you might have the very best name in the entire earth.
Thank you.
How can you beat Shelley Kelly?
It's all my husband's fault. He was just so darn charming.
Yes. So it's really fun to see you together, to hear your dynamic. Yeah. And I'm excited to be here.
And through your podcast specifically, Graced Health, you talk about the physical health, you talk about mental health, you talk about nutrition, and your faith just inspires all of it. And I've learned so much about, I know one of your favorites is connective tissue, which I now know so much about that. I'll say nutrition because I think I had a frozen pizza for lunch. Like I'm so bad at that. But you just find a way to really speak to us. I wanted to ask you, now that I've babbled on about what you do, can you tell us in your own words about Graced Health and your community that you have?
Well, you say you babbled on. I think it took me many years of babbling in my own way to clearly define exactly what it is that I do. So it was a bit in the bio, but basically I help women over 40 take care of themselves in simple and grace-filled ways so they can fulfill their purpose or fulfill their calling, however they want to define that. So that's kind of a broad thing. I am a personal trainer. I am a nutrition coach. I also believe that God did not want us to be so focused on eating and exercise that we lose our focus on Him. And that balance, and it's so funny, Lisa, that you talk about connective tissue, because one of the elements of wellness that I've really been learning more about is the wellness benefit of connection with other people. Mm-hmm. And so it's not just eating and exercise. And so I do love to help women with that. So practically speaking, these are things like showing them how they can do a few movements to strengthen their back so their head and their neck aren't hurting after sitting at the computer all day, or some movements to strengthen particular muscle groups to help their knees, because we are getting older. And Shelley, like you said, every time we wake up, there's something new. And so doing these can help our knees feel better when we're going up the stairs or when we're out walking. But at the same time, my focus is to help women realize how holistic our health is and the broadness of wellness, not just what the fitness industry, and I am part of the fitness industry, I understand, but not just what the fitness industry, or some might say diet culture, has said, which is we equate health with our size. That is not true. And there are so many other elements of that.
Amy, how did you get started on this path, this career path in nutrition and fitness?
Well, believe it or not, I have a finance degree, so that wasn't very helpful. How did I get started on that? I will shorten the story. Basically, I did graduate. I have a finance degree, and in my first phase of my career, I was in product marketing, financial analysis, corporate world. I stayed home for a bit to have when I had kids. So I was, a stay-at-home mom, with the exception of doing some fitness classes on the side. So movement has always been part of my life. I grew up dancing. I did the whole drill team and pom and all of this, the spirit stuff, which was very different than it is now, by the way. I don't think I could have survived it now. But I always had a love of movement. I feel good when I move. I feel good when I challenge my body. So when my kids were young, I started actually in the neighborhood that we live in. I started a mom and kind of a mommy and me program for prenatal and postnatal moms and their children. And that kind of grew into just being I shouldn't say just, but being a fitness instructor. So I would go to gyms, I would teach a class, and then come home. I was perfectly content doing that. About 8 years ago, I had just moved into a house that we had designed. It was our dream house, all of the things. And I felt so unsettled. I was so unsettled in my heart. I remember being with my small group in my Bible study and saying, you guys, I know God is wanting me to do something, and I don't know what it is. I am here. Here I am, Lord. And I don't know what it is. So after a period of reflection, a period of, I like to call it just sitting in silence with God. So not a lot of praises and prayers, but just, Lisa, I think Shelley's giving you a hard time about be still and know,
right.
She just repeats it all the time.
Well, I'm gonna validate that, because all I did was be still. And God started whispering to me, I want you to write, and I want you to write to help women have balance in what they do and sustainability in what they do. As we're recording this, it's January, and there's a lot of lofty and hefty goals out there,
Yes.
and new year, new you, and resolutions and all the things. And that is not exactly what I advocate. I advocate sustainability. I advocate what is realistic in your unique life with your unique body. And then that grew into writing more, blogging, podcasting, and then writing a book, and then now another podcast and another book coming out. So I'm stopping it here. No more podcasts. I will say that. But so Shelley, that's kind of a long answer, but I feel but that is how I got into doing what I'm doing. Is the very short answer is because God called me, and I knew what happened, and I knew what I felt like when I ignored his promptings, which I had been doing. And so I will just follow wherever he leads me.
I love that. It's such a great experience when you know that you've heard him whisper, and you know that you're finally on the right path. And even though you run into doors or obstacles, you know that he's going to open that door, or you just have to turn and look for the key because he's left it for you. So that's really beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think too, it's just the confidence of I am where God wants me to be. And I may not know if it's a door or if it's a window or if this is just where he wants me to be, but I'm just going to trust him. And period. I'm just going to trust him. He'll show me what's next.
I think a lot of our listeners are probably going, man, I wish I had that. I wish I had that confidence to know that I'm on the right path that God has put me on.
I do feel blessed in that. I do feel lucky. I talk a lot about we take care of ourselves so we can do what we're called to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I am well aware that there are a lot of people who say, I will do that, but I don't know what it is. And we can dig into that if you're interested in it. And I certainly do not have all the answers. 100%. I do not have all the answers, but I know that that's a struggle. And I think
Mm-hmm.
too, if I can say this one thing about it, it may not be that having a calling is this big, huge Moses in the burning bush example.
Mm-hmm.
It might be something really small that God is wanting us to do, and just being confident in anytime you hear of someone having a difficult day, maybe you just take them some cookies.
I
And
love
that
that.
maybe that might be really where God wants you to bless someone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are
That's
cookies on your nutrition list?
Yes.
yes,
Yay.
especially if they're chocolate chip, right?
They are, Shelley. Yes. I
I do
actually
remember you having chocolate at the book clubs when you hosted. So
they are. Yes, because all food gives us energy. All food. God gave us all the food. There are some foods that have more nutritional value than others. And I know that if I ate cookies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks, I would not feel great. So I don't. But I do have a cookie, even, yes, in January.
Yeah. I love what you're saying about your calling, because I think that's something Shelley and I have talked quite a bit about, in that there are different seasons and different times, and listening for that call and understanding where God wants you right now. And it's okay if it changes. The way that you've integrated all of those things together in your approach really helps women. We all struggle with where are we supposed to be? What are we supposed to be doing? There's so much information out there, and there's so much we're being beat over the head with about what our lives are supposed to be like, that your approach of acceptance and I'll call it moderation, kind of understanding what's good for all of us, is unique to me, because I don't think that message is out there for most of us. It's hard to find in all of the noise. So
Yeah, it's definitely swimming upstream. And at the same time, I will say I spent many, many years swimming downstream with everyone else and trying to pursue those six-pack abs and the perfect body and the perfect diet, and all of the perfection that's out there. And as we know, there's just not anything. I mean, like, what is perfect anyway? Who defines that?
mhm.
So yeah, it is. And again, I don't take credit for any of this, Lisa. I just feel like there were just these little whispers along the way of friends saying, you've got a really interesting voice. Like, can you talk more about that? You should write about that. And that's when I was
Mhm.
like, stick my fingers in the ears. La, 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 la. No, no, no. The world does not need another health and fitness blogger. And God was not happy with that answer.
Right.
But yeah, it is. It's definitely counterculture, uh, and especially so, I feel like, with our young women.
Mhm. Mhm.
well, I fell victim to some of that when I turned 40. I was doing CrossFit and paleo and a lot of really intense workout. I kind of fell into it by accident. And then I had my son, and that was a surprise. And then I moved and changed jobs and got back into the grind, and my eating habits changed. My exercise fell off. And I've noticed as I've gotten older, it's much harder to try to go back into those earlier, I'll say temporary habits, because I only did that for about 18 months of my life. But I don't feel healthier. That I don't feel as healthy as I did when I was 40. And so I'm really interested in finding out more about how you can. I really like your concept of accepting your body and your size for who you are, and making small adjustments or looking for a pathway to age with grace or to eat healthier without cutting out everything.
Yeah, one thing that has been really hard for me, and I think is a challenge for a lot of women, is this concept that our bodies are designed to change. We will change. And so, yeah, you may not feel like you did when you were at 40. You're also in a different season. You entered into a new season of being a mom in her 40s with a little one. That's very taxing on your body for sure. And I think as we get older, sometimes we have this expectation that, well, I've been there before, so I can get there again. And
Yes.
maybe that means a size. Maybe that means being able to lift a certain weight or run a certain amount or walk a certain distance. Maybe it is, well, I used to be able to eat paleo and I felt really good, but now I really need to have some oats for breakfast or something. I'm just
Mhm.
filling in the blank.
Yeah.
And as a side note, Shelley, what's really funny is when I wrote Your Worthy Body, I talked about intermittent fasting and doing that. And you couldn't pay me to do that now. You could not pay me. I have to have breakfast. And I think a lot of that is my age and my stage and my hormones and all of that. But yeah, our bodies are changing. And especially, I won't, I don't know exactly how old you all are. I think I can kind of figure it out, but I'll just,
I'm
but
I'm
older
older
than
than you are.
Lisa.
I know this, you guys.
We're not hiding it.
Okay. So I'm 49 years old. I turned 50 this year. And I'm in this perimenopausal phase and like
Mhm.
things are changing. And I can either fight that and I
Mhm.
can lament it, or I can say, okay, this is just the new phase of life. And how can I meet my body where it is now and still move and maybe change some things so that way I can continue to feel good? Or maybe it's just that this is where I am. And it doesn't mean that I'm like throwing up my arms and being like, well, whatever, I'm just gonna, I don't care anymore. I still care. And I'm just not holding myself to the standard that I used to hold myself to. And I'm a lot more at peace with that.
You
That right
you
there, that's the big takeaway, I think, because everything you just said is what I need to remind myself every day to
Mhm.
accept myself for who I am and where I am right now and do those things. That I can't go back to that body or that size, especially that size. but that you're but to accept who I am right now and work on it from that point.
Yeah. Cause Shelley, have you ever heard God saying, okay, you really need to lose 20 pounds or 10 pounds or 2 pounds or, you know what I mean?
No, I think
Yeah.
that's me.
Right.
I think that's me up and the pants don't fit and I go, maybe I shouldn't have had ice cream every night before, like watching TV with ice cream every night this past summer. So, maybe I should have
And that's
walked more.
well, and that's where I do think where it's like, okay, are how do you feel? How do you sleep with that? Are
Mhm.
you having, blood sugar issues and stuff like that? But it's not necessarily to manage our body, it's to manage how we feel and function. I use those words a lot. So,
Mhm.
and I don't know
Yeah.
if I mean, I just feel like God's not asking it. I just haven't found anything in the Bible where the God is saying you need to be a particular size. What I have said, what I have read is love your God, with all your heart, strength, and mind, and love others.
Yep.
And we can do that. We can do that in whatever body he gives us.
Mhm.
Amen.
It's funny. I don't know if it was you or one of your guests on your podcast, but they said, why do we expect ourselves to be the same size we were at 25 or to be able to do the same things we did at 25? And that, I have to say, that really hit home for me because that's been a huge part of my perimenopausal struggle, has been my body changing, in shape and all of that. And it dawned on me, how people ask you that question, like, if you could go back and relive high school, would you do it? And we're always like, no. Oh my gosh, the anxieties, the stresses that, I'd much rather know what I know now. I'm more comfortable. So why can't I accept my physical body as much as I accept my, the mental state? Yes, there are times when I would love to have my 25-year-old body back to run up a flight of stairs or whatever, but you can't look backwards. and you have to look forward to where you're going and just accept those changes. Not everyone gets to grow old.
Right. Right.
You
I
know?
just did an episode on that. Aging is a privilege. Aging is a privilege. The other thing too, I had this realization. How do you, and you can just picture this in your mind, but like, how do you expect that you're going to look if, God willing, you're 75 years old, right? Like, we're probably going to have some more wrinkles. We're probably going to have some gray hair. We're probably going to have some age spots on our hands, right? We might be a little fluffier. We might have like even more tube socks for boobs. I don't know if I can say that on here, but like things are going to be different, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to keep our body as it is until age 74, and then the night before we turn 75 all of that's going to happen. It's a gradual process. This is part of aging. This is part of how our bodies react to life. And some of a lot of it is genetics, a lot of it is our lifestyle. And I tell you what, I would rather have a lot of sunspots on my skin and have gone outside every day and gone on a walk or exercised than to have perfect, beautiful, glowing skin that's never seen the sunlight. I'm just, my mom had a dermatologist once say, that's just proof that you've lived well.
Aw.
So I think we've got to give ourselves the grace that, yeah, this is what's going to happen. And, do I love it all the time? No. But am I realistic that this is what's going to happen? I try to be.
I love that. Yeah.
Amy, I'm curious if there was one or two pieces of advice out of you've got so much wonderful content on your podcast, and I admit I have not looked at your book. I think Lisa has it, but I do not have it. Yes, there it is. But I did listen to one of your episodes, 10 Simple Essentials for Aging with Strength, Grace, and Strength. And I was just wondering if you could give our listeners just two pieces of advice, the things that they could do today to at least get themselves moving towards acceptance or helping their body age gracefully. What two things would you tell them?
Well, as you know, I'm a personal trainer and nutrition coach, and neither of these really have to do with that. The first, I would say, in as much as it is possible, protect your sleep. I say that also with the understanding, and I am raising my hand, that as we age, women are going to have our sleep interrupted. We have hot flashes at 3 a.m. I don't know the age of your listeners, but like you, or if you have young children and babies, I mean, they're waking up and your sleep is going to be interrupted. But as much as it is up to you, try to get your sleep. And that's because our body does so much recovery and restoration when we are sleeping. So that would be the first thing. I mean, and it impacts our mental health, it impacts our physical health, it impacts our mental clarity. So I would say, and which will help have that ripple effect into the decisions that we make. And if we have enough energy and if we feel good so that we can move, or rather than, and choosing foods that make us feel good rather than quick hit energy that maybe we'll regret later, something like that. So number one is sleep. Number two is one of the blessings and privileges that I have had as being a podcast host and inviting other people on. I get to learn. And so I get to learn new things right alongside my community. That the second one is just the power of breathing and having breath and taking ourselves down for a moment. So checking in with your body. And this is going to sound really strange, but because I recognize that not everybody can take 3 to 5 minutes out of their day a couple times a day and meditate. Like that sounds weird. That sounds woo-woo, whatever. So here's my little trick. Whenever you go to the bathroom and you're in the restroom with the door closed, do 3 slow belly breaths because you've got privacy. Hopefully no one is bothering you. And it's one of those habit stacking that James Clear talks about in his book, Atomic Habits, which is basically if you're trying to start a new habit, do it when you're doing something else. So just when I say belly breaths, I mean, breathe in through your diaphragm, through your belly, like you're filling up your belly with air, and then exhaling, and pay attention to your body when you're releasing. For a lot of women, they hold their stress in their stomach. Many women hold it in their neck or their shoulders. I hold it in my chest, so I can literally feel my chest kind of melting. Managing our cortisol levels, and not all cortisol is bad, but managing excess cortisol levels, managing our stress, that can impact our sleep. It can help our sleep. It can help us navigate our day. So those are really two of the things that I think is a great step in aging, with simple ways for aging, and with grace and strength, because when we do those two things, that can impact so many other things that we'd like to do. And I'm kind of wondering here, I'm sitting there going back to that to that episode, did I even talk about breathing? I don't think I did, but there you go, there's a bonus one. Sorry.
There's such a surprise when you said sleep. I was like, oh, of course, because it's the foundation for having energy throughout the whole day. But I thought you were going to say something like move more, or stretch, or eat more probiotic yogurts, or something like that. So
yes,
I like
to all of those.
You said sleep and breathe, because it's the most basic thing on earth: sleep and breathe.
Sleep and breathe,
but with intention.
Right. And when we do that, then we may feel more equipped to do the next things, right? To move, to have our yogurts, rather than like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out, I'm just going to emotionally eat, whatever is in the pantry. Yeah.
Frozen pizza.
I'm not going to shame.
Emotional. That's comfort eating.
Let me tell you what pizza has. It has dairy, it has protein, It has carbohydrates.
There you go.
It has some, so it's good. We're good. It has some fats. You're fine, Lisa.
Hey, I actually ate 2 Brussels sprouts the other day, which, for those who know me, I hate vegetables. So I actually ate 2 Brussels sprouts. So
well, good for you.
I'm doing
and
good.
I'm so sorry you don't like vegetables. Oh yeah.
It's funny I don't know if you could tell that when you were talking about breathing. Could you see Shelly and I were both taking in our deep breaths? Could you see that? Like you were saying it and we're doing it. We're like, oh yeah, it works.
Well, that's a great point, because we just forget, and I forget too. So yeah, just that little bit of a reminder to just take a hot second to check in with ourselves it really does make a huge difference. Yeah.
Well, and I like that advice about the sleeping too, because I can pass that down to my adult daughters and even my almost teenage son, that you need to put the screens down at night and not sit there and scroll and look at things. Most of us in our family, we do like to fall asleep listening to something, and that something is usually hallow, either a Bible story or a prayer that just kind of allows us to softly drift off, but not looking at a screen, because that interrupts your sleep, or it'll keep you up later. So
yes, it does. Well, it's funny. So I have this new book for teen girls coming out called Your Core Strength. And in it, I answer a lot of questions that I have gotten from teen girls that I know are in the hearts of them, or that I have heard from their moms as pain points. And so I've just addressed it here. One of them is, how can I sleep better? And yes, I do say, hey, let's, put the screens down, because that blue light does go in through your eyeballs, and it emits, bright light to your brain. And then the other thing too, is I have a whole chapter on just kind of optimizing yourself, your health. And I don't love the word optimize, but it's just trying to reframe that from a different question that girls may have. And so I have this little stair step approach. And the very first stair is sleep. You've got to get your sleep. And it's a 7-step process. Number 7 is exercise. So even though I love movement, I love exercising, I love working with women and helping them to achieve things that are new or feel good. even as in terms of just like their everyday living. And yet that's going to be the last thing that I'm going to encourage you to do, because there's so many other aspects that we can put in there beforehand.
And I expect you talk about these and a lot more on your podcast, Graced Health.
Yes, I do. So Graced Health, again, is for women over 40 who are just looking to take care of themselves in grace-filled ways, right? Like where it is not, I do not come in ever saying you need to do this, you need to do that. I might strongly encourage you to do things like get enough calcium for your bones. But I have a passion for empowering and equipping women with information, with knowledge that they can discern what is best for them and their unique bodies and their unique circumstances, and apply to help them feel good, function well, and do the things that God's calling them to do, whether it is big or small. Yes. So that is Graced Health.
And Amy, I believe you put together a link for our listeners. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
I did. Yes. I realize that not everybody is able to get up at 5:00 in the morning, hit the gym for an hour, come home, make a perfect breakfast, go to Lisa, you're laughing over there. Like
you lost me at 5 a.m. Sorry.
Right. Like who has time for that? And especially depending on the responsibilities that you may have, you may be taking care of your kids and your parents. And there's a lot. It's funny. I went to a local Chamber of Commerce meeting this time last year, and we went around the room saying what our goals were for the year. Out of the 25-ish people who were there, probably 20, their goal was to take better care of themselves. And so what I have done is I have put together just a list of 30, I'm calling it 30 plus ways, non-gym ways to take care of yourself and improve your health for women over 40. So none of these are get up at 5 a.m. First of all, you do not have to get up at 5 a.m. None of these are exercising for a particular amount of time, but these are small, simple ways that you can integrate into your day to help take care of yourself, that I think we have lost our focus. And I'm trying to think of what the right word is, but we've lost our minds. That's what the problem is. We have lost our minds, and we think that health is all about eating and exercising and looking a certain way. And so this is to help reframe that and give you really small things that you can do throughout your day. You don't have to do them all in one day. Maybe pick one a day. Do it one day, one a day for a month, and see how it treats you. See if you notice any difference. But there's small, simple ways to take care of yourself without feeling like you have to make huge changes in your life.
I can't wait to see that.
Yes. Well, you can find it at Graced Health, and it is GRACED, which I know is not a word, but that's just what I came up with when I started this. So it's GRACED health altogether.com/health. And I provided that link for you, so that can be in the show notes. And it's designed to, again, just be simple. I'm all about simple.
I like that. Me too. One of your podcasts way back when you're talking about atomic habits, talked about when you're doing the dishes to stand on one foot or brushing your teeth. I still do it. I find myself in the kitchen balancing on one leg.
Good for you.
And that was one of your podcasts probably 3-4 years ago that I just started doing it. Yeah. So it's those little things.
It is those little things. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, which our bodies, I mean, I hate to sound, this is going to sound really depressing, but like we're declining. This is just normal. This is the natural thing. And so one of the things that is not as good as it used to be is our ability to balance. And just physiologically, that's what's happening. So when we do little things to train ourselves, like stand on one foot when we're brushing our teeth or washing the dishes, that's going to help our body to do that. So I'm super happy that you're employing that. Good for you, Lisa.
Now I need to try it.
I know.
Yeah.
It
Because
works.
you're right. As we get older, one of the biggest risks is falling, losing your balance and falling. And so it makes sense that as we age, we would focus on ways we can stay balanced and upright and safe.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Shelley, did you know that one of the biggest predictors of longevity is the ability to get up and down off the ground with ease?
No, I did
Really?
not.
Yeah, there was a
Hang on, I
study
got
out
to
of
try
Europe.
Shelley's
There
like,
was
hold,
a
please.
yeah, there was a study out of Europe that looked at that, and it was just the ability to get up off the ground. Ideally, you do it without getting your hands or your knees touching the ground, which is
Ah.
challenging. You do it like from a crisscross applesauce position,
Oh, okay.
and elevate and go down. That's challenging. I actually have a client that whenever we're transitioning from the floor to the ground, I make her do that. And she's like, Amy, I said, I know, but you're 60 years old and I want you doing it. And I said, I'll do it with you. But yeah, just getting up and down, because when we fall and we would, number one, want to be able to get up. And number two, the risk of hip fracture is so big. And that's a really scary thing as we get older as well.
I think my knee just twinged a little bit, though, at the idea of crisscross and getting up from that position. So,
But now we know what we're doing as soon as we get done with this. We're
yeah,
we're all getting
as
on
soon
the
as we
ground
turn this
trying to
off,
get up.
that's what we're doing.
Okay. But disclaimer, this is not a party trick. Okay.
Okay, now that sounds like a story.
Says
There's a story
you.
there.
No, it's not. But I did this. So I'm sure I had a book launch party with my mom, threw a little party for a lot of her friends. So I won't say my mom's age, but I'm 49. This was like, I was 46 and she was old enough to have a 46-year-old daughter, and her friends are about the same age. So they all wanted to see this. And so I'm like in my dress and trying to do this, and it was a whole thing. But then they were like, oh, well, I want to do this. And so they're, again, sitting crisscross, and they're in shape. They're doing really well. And one of them tried to come up and she was like, oh, I just hurt something. And I'm like, okay,
Oh
we
my
got to
gosh.
warm up a little bit. Like, can we? So this is not a party trick. Do this after your body is warm, after you've done some stretching, maybe activated some glute muscles. If you don't know what I mean by that, like glute bridges, like do some things first before you just pop down and try and pop back up.
That was the legal disclaimer part of the podcast.
Yeah.
Amy, I have to say, I love your energy and I love your positivity about growing older, because I have lately been woe is me about a lot of this. And just listening to you makes me realize I need to switch my mindset a little bit and get back to being yay, and not grumbling so much about all the little things that every day come up.
Yeah.
So
I think we all go through that. I mean, I go through that too, Lisa. So you are not alone. And at the same time, the words that we say to ourselves
mhm,
do have a lot of impact.
mhm.
So yeah, I mean, you're not alone. It's hard. It
Yeah.
is hard. For
Especially when
sure.
you have teenagers and they do everything so effortlessly, it seems like, physically. And then you're like, oh, I used to be
I
able to do
remember
that.
Well, Amy, before we wrap it up, we ask all of our guests to share a story about their sister, like a sister story, because as you know, our sister relationship is really important to us, and we just want to encourage others to share theirs. So, do you have a sister?
I do. Yes.
Is she older or younger?
My sister is 4.5 years younger than I am. And that half is a big deal because she was 5 grades younger than I am. So when I was a senior in high school, she was in 8th grade. When I
Okay.
was in college, she was in high school. She was in college when I was a newlywed. And our life seasons have never quite aligned. And so we've always gotten along really, really well, but we weren't super close, especially growing up, because there was a decent age gap in between us. My sister had her first child when she was 38, which meant that I was 43-ish. You never quite know. So when I was 43, I had teenagers. And when she had her newborn, I went up to visit her. She lives in Oklahoma. And, while her husband was at work, I stayed home with her and just did the things, right? Like just did the things to help with a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that she immediately had that I know I'm not supposed to be envious of, but I really admire and respect about her is how much she cherished her baby boy and her newborn. I had kids. I mean, I was like 29 and 30 when I had my two kids. And so I was caught up in like all the things and tracking the poops and making sure they're fed. And I'm wound up a little bit differently. And I think some of it was age, the young age for me, and kind of feeling, I don't know, competitive against whom, I'm not really sure. But I still remember, I mean, we were just whatever we were doing, and he'd be in the kitchen on the counter in one of those little bouncy seats, just sleeping away. And she'd say, "Isn't he sweet? Oh, I love him so much." And still, he's 6 years old, and she cherishes him so much. And I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy that she does that. And so I don't know that that's really a story, but our life seasons have been so different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fun for me to see her enjoying this one and just loving on her kid in a different way, not in a better or worse, obviously not a worse, but just in a different way than I experienced with my kids.
That's I mean, that's really sweet. And I love
Yeah.
that it's not so many times with sisters, you get the competitiveness,
Yeah.
but for you to see and recognize how wonderful that is for her season of life. I like that.
Well, and I am so grateful for this time that we've had here. And I know we've talked a lot about midlife and over 40, because that's the community that I primarily serve. But if you have teen girls and you would like to have them hear this same type of message, and maybe get a shortcut to and circumvent all of the nonsense that we've been having and dealing with in our head for a long time, definitely send them over to Lessons to My Teenage Self podcast. It's relatively new. I just launched it this week or this month, but it is a place that I am hoping to give this type of wisdom and lessons to young girls, not only through me, but also through young women in their 20s and 30s. They'll be coming on and sharing lessons that they have. So that's another great place that if you want your daughter to hear this kind of stuff, and our kids never listen to us. So if you want them to hear it from another trusted voice, I hope you trust me, then that's a great place to send them as well. Lessons to My Teenage Self podcast.
Fantastic.
Is it okay if the moms listen? Because I really want to. I really want to hear this, and then encourage my girls for sure.
Yes, just remember, if you tell your girls
They
what
won't
you
listen.
hear on that podcast, they won't listen to you. So you have to figure
That's
out a way to
right.
get them to subscribe and listen to her.
Yes. Yes. Well, my girls know Amy, so I think that they will definitely appreciate her words of wisdom, especially if it's not mom telling them. So
Fantastic.
I can't wait to check it out.
Well, I like to say a lot of this stuff is not going to be that different than what you tell them, but they listen to a voice that's not mom.
That's exactly right.
And the same is true with my children too.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll come home saying things, particularly one of them, and it is all I can do not to say, "I told you that already."
Every day.
Yeah.
That's why it's great to have a good community around you, so that you know your kids are getting good messages from other people. That is what you want them to learn.
Yeah.
But
Amen
other
to
people
that.
help you with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Amy, for being with us here today and helping us and our listeners understand that we can accept ourselves and move into middle age with grace. And we're definitely going to include links to your book, your podcast, your website, both your podcasts, one for us and one for our teen and young adult children. And there was an offer you made to give us some other information, and we'll have that link also in the show notes.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me on. This truly was delightful.
Oh, I can't. I need to come. We need to have you back. I'm so let's just keep going.
Anytime. Yeah. I'm in.
Well, we'll have to do it in a little while because I've first got to get on the floor and see if I can get up again. And if I can't get up again, then yeah, I don't know if we're having another podcast next week. I might be stuck.
Come out for me, Lisa.
Amy, I know where you
She'll
live.
call
I'm
you and
coming.
sign up for one of your movement classes.
All right. Thanks for being here, and we will see you, everyone, next Thursday.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.